Hello and welcome to my show Indus Cuisine. I'm your chef Basim Akhund. We're back with another new episode from the heart of Pakistan. Today's recipe is Pakistan's one of the most loved recipes, you could say, and the name is Malai Handi. Two Pakistani words coming together to give it a nice name. Malai means basically cream and handi means the pot it's cooked in, and when I say handi, handi traditionally means a pot which is made out of clay. This recipe has originated from the village sides of Pakistan. And why is that? Wherever people had a lot of cattle, for example buffaloes, cows, and they were into the dairy production, this recipe was a part of their daily lifestyle. This recipe has changed a bit when it became mainstream and it came to the restaurants in Pakistan. And how is that? I will let you know. It's a very quick and easy recipe, and it is usually made once a week, you could say, in every Pakistani home. Why? Because it is easily cooked. Secondly, the ingredients are easily available. And third, it is delicious. Okay, so this recipe will be made in two parts, and the two parts are not that extensive. They're very easy. The first part is we'll be coating the chicken with a few things, and then we shall shallow fry it to give it this nice crispy texture. Then we shall make a sauce for this, but the sauce will not be too runny. It will be based on yogurt and cream. So I'll give you a rundown of the ingredients. The first half of the ingredients includes chicken boneless. I'll be using the chest meat, the white meat also that people say it in the West. Then you'll be using some oil for frying. You'll be using some corn flour. You'll be using some salt to taste. Then you'll be using one onion and a capsicum. That's it. Then the other part of the recipe will include some cream, yogurt, red chili powder, garam masala, green chilies, ginger garlic. I'll finely shred it. Then you'll be using some black peppercorn, around 2 tablespoons of oil and some butter. And you might be thinking, why is he using butter and oil in the same recipe? I'll let you know when I start cooking that part. So first what you need to do is, I have a green board over here. I'll get ready with all the vegetables. Okay, so the vegetables are, for the first part, 1 onion and 1 capsicum. So these are the two things. Now what you need to do is, you do not use the capsicum seeds. Remember that. Why? Because the capsicum seeds are very bitter and they dominate all the other flavors in the recipe. And whenever you talk about Pakistani cooking, I mean, I've cooked for years, but personally speaking, I've never seen a recipe in which they use the capsicum seeds. We always take the capsicum seeds out to balance the flavor properly. What I'll do is I'll take a paring knife, and if you can see this white part, I'll start cutting it. But what you need to do for this recipe is you need to make cubes. So wherever you're seeing these lines in between, that's the best defining line through which you could start cutting. When you start cutting through this defining line, what happens is you get an equal piece. You can take that part out also, because you won't be using this part because it's a bit bitter. It's the inner part of the green pepper, or you could say the capsicum, or you could also call it bell pepper. So there are many words for this vegetable, and in Pakistan usually we call it capsicum, and in our own language, in Pakistani Urdu language, we call it Shimla mirch. Now you might be thinking, why do you call it Shimla mirch? There's another reason behind that. And the reason is that it's usually grown in the winter times and it's easily accessible at that time, and when you come towards summer, you won't find it easily. So what I'll do is, first I'll just make cubes around 1 inch by 1 inch approximately, and I'll keep it on the side. This will be going with the chicken, but not immediately. After the chicken, I'll pour it into the pan. And the cooking time will differ. Why? Because you don't want to overcook it, remember that. So I'll just pick it up and I'll keep it back in the basket. The basket is clean. It shall go over here. Now what you need is, you need an onion. Now first of all, what you'll do is you'll take the root out, because I'm not going to chop it. I need to cut it in a different manner. So now if you can see that the onion is holding together with its like spiral rings inside, I'll go against it and I shall keep it like this, and I'll make 1 and 2 cuts. Now when you cook this onion, it will fall out and you will get these nice slices which are right now attached to each other. When you give it heat, it starts falling apart and the flavor comes in, and also the texture will change of the whole onion. So what I'll do is I'll pick this up and I'll place it over here. So this is done. Now the second part is the chicken. You need to cut the chicken in a very certain manner. First you'll change the board. Why? Because I always talk about avoiding cross-contamination, and that is avoided only if you do not mix the bones. Okay, so around 500 grams of chicken. What I'll do is I shall start cutting it. Okay, I've used my knife for vegetables. I'll just rinse it first. Once I've rinsed it, we'll make a few cuts over here. First cut it from between, and then take the undercut out over here, which is just attached to the main part of the meat. You could even see if I pull it out, I can take it out without a knife also. This part of the meat is the most tender part of the meat in chicken. Okay, now what you'll do is I'll just pull the pieces over here, take my knife, place it here and just lightly hammer it down. Why am I hammering it down? When you hammer chicken down, basically it's a muscle. Meat is muscle, right? So when a muscle is tense, when it cooks, it gets tough. So when you break it down like this, you'll get a nice tender texture. Hit it down. And now cut it into pieces. So I'll just make cubes of the meat, but first cut it into these long pieces. And now make cubes of around ½ inch each. So when you make cubes of ½ inch each, they will eventually cook and get smaller. You want to make bite-sized pieces, remember this, for this recipe. And I'm cooking for around 3 people today. If you want to take the fat out, which I have already taken out of the recipe, you're more than welcome. If you feel there's a wishbone in between, please throw that part away, because you want this recipe to be boneless. There's a reason behind it. Why? Because if you cook something boneless, it must be boneless. Now you might be thinking, what does that mean? For example, if I tell you you're having boneless chicken and a bone pops out, you're not ready for it when you're munching on your meal, and at that time you could also chip your tooth inside, or you could actually damage your mouth from inside. Why? Because it will slip, and it's happened a lot. That's why when in restaurants you cook, you make sure you serve what you've written on the menu. Remember that. So I'll take the undercut part also and I'll put it in the chicken together. And as you can see, there's another piece of bone over here. I'll just take it away and I'll throw it on the side. This is done. Now what you need to do is you need to pick up a bowl. First I'll rinse my hands and then I'll tell you what to do. So we'll take a big bowl, we'll keep it over here on the side, and now first the chicken is going to go in. I shall add some salt to it. The salt always brings out moisture, remember that in any meat. Mix it up. And then add some corn flour. Do not add the whole thing in one go, slowly and gradually. If you see any thick pieces of corn flour, press it down with your thumb. We're giving it a nice coat, and that coat will give a nice texture to this recipe, remember that. This is done. Now what you need to do is you need to bring some oil to heat, and once it's ready you will fry this. But before that, if you have time, I would prefer that you leave this chicken for at least 1 hour in the fridge. But we're doing a show for you, I don't have time, so I'll just cook it right now for you. Once the oil comes to heat, I'll let you know what to do next. So the only thing I've done now is I waited. I waited for at least 5 minutes for the oil to get hot, and 5 minutes I gave the chicken so that the salt crystals I added in it would properly dilute and give it a nice seasoning. So now what you'll do is in hot oil you shall just add this. Reduce the heat to low always when you're adding it. Why? Because you don't want the oil to splash over you. Hot oil splashing on your body is never a nice pleasant thing. It really hurts, and the burn you get by hot oil will take a lot of time to get better as compared to normal burning, or if you're burned by steam or water. Oil is the worst. That's all I can say. Okay, so now just start adding the chicken individually. Remember, because the chicken is cold, the temperature of the oil will come down. Just shake it a bit. And why am I shaking it? It's because I do not want the chicken to start sticking to each other. Do not add all of it in one go, it will start sticking, remember that. Keep this over here. Move it on the side, add it over here. There's a lot of space in the pan. I'm just shallow frying it. The oil is not so much that the chicken will start floating, remember that. Now increase the heat when you see the bubbles reducing. Why? Because the oil is going down in temperature. This is almost done. Once you put all the chicken in, you start counting the time. And for how long would you put the chicken in for? Only 5 minutes on medium heat. Remember that. The last piece is over here. I'm going to rinse my hands once properly. And now we shall just fix the placement of the meat. Why did I rinse my hands first? Because it was covered with chicken and I do not want to touch all the other things with that. So this is done. Now let the meat cook properly. And now the next step. You need to start putting some corn flour on the vegetables also, but you won't fry it in this. Once this is done, then you shall fry the vegetables. Okay, if you see a part of the onion which is too close together, what you'll do is you shall just cut the top part. It happens, it's Mother Nature, at times it's made like that, so that it doesn't stick together then. This is done. The small parts of the onion I will not use, remember that. I'll just add a little bit of corn flour, shake it up. And as you can see, the onion is starting to fall apart. And if you see some pieces that don't come out, just use your hand and pull them on the side like this. Small things take you a long way. It's my job to teach you. I'm here for that only. So it takes time, but it will give you a nice texture and the proper flavor you will be needing for this recipe. So I'm just pulling it aside. Why? Because when the onion is close together and when you move it, the corn flour won't go till the center. You have to pull the strands apart and then move forward with it. So this is almost done. And now you'll add the capsicum. The capsicum goes in the end. Why? Because I've cut it into pieces separately already. So just add the capsicum. I added over here. Keep this on the side and pour a little bit of corn flour again. Now this will give the vegetables this nice coating, and when I'll fry the vegetables for a very little time, which could be around a minute on high heat, they'll get nice and crispy individually. The chicken over here should be cooked properly till the core, and till the time the chicken is cooking, what we'll do is we'll go for a very short break. Once we're back, I'll continue the recipe and I'll let you know what to do. Keep watching Indus Cuisine. Welcome back. You're watching Indus Cuisine. I'm your chef Basim Akhund. In the break, I just fried the chicken. It's over here. I've dished it out. I'll keep it on the side momentarily, and now we'll continue with the recipe. So the ingredients for the second part will be shared in a bit. But before that, what you need is you need to fry these vegetables just a bit. So I'll just toss these vegetables in. Not for too long. Let's say just for 40 seconds to 50 seconds on high heat. Once we've fried them, we'll dish them out on some tissue paper. So I'll bring this over here. I'll take out some tissue and I'll place it over here so that I take out all the excess oil. Remember that. You can smell it till here. You will not cook it in the sauce. You just add it in the sauce and mix it up. Why? Because you want the flavor to mix in and not make the vegetables too soft and too mushy. We will just give it some heat over here. I'll tilt the pan on one side so that I can give it a nice deep frying effect. Mix it up. And it's been a minute, and when you see the sides of the onions getting a little light brown, which you can over here, you'll dish it out. So just pick it up, take the oil out and place it over here. This recipe does require a little bit of time, but trust me, God, it's really delicious. and the onions and the capsicum is done. Now what I'll do is I'll pick this up and keep it on the side. Remember, never put hot oil in the sink, it will ruin everything. So I'll just reduce the heat to low, pick it up and keep it on the grill on the side just for it to cool down. Okay, now when this is done, you need to come towards the second part. You need a pan, or let's say we'll use a wok. We'll keep the wok over here, increase the heat to full, and once the wok comes to heat, we'll add a few ingredients. For that you need an onion. You'll finely chop this. So the root is on. I'll just cut it, make really thin slices, because I want the onion to be really fine for this recipe. And just go really close. This is done. Pick the root, throw it on the side, reduce the heat over here. Do not overheat the pan for now. Yet again, just make thin slices. And this is done. So I shall saute the onions in oil, but before that, what you need to do is you need to add the butter. This recipe is all about butter. Let the butter melt. And why am I adding oil to the butter? Remember one thing, if you bring the butter to heat and let it cook for a longer time, the butter will start burning. The flavor will change. But when you add oil to the butter, what happens is it stops it from burning. So these are small things you need to do. Increase the heat, pick up a spatula and start breaking the butter so that it melts quickly. This is done. Now pick up the onion, toss it in and just cook it till it's translucent. Do not let it get brown or it will change the flavor of the recipe and also the color of the recipe. This is done. Start mixing it. Reduce the heat to really, really low. And now I'll just rinse my hands. So now what you need to do, the onion is nice and translucent, nice and soft. Now you'll start adding some ingredients. First what we'll do is we'll pick up some ginger. I'll shred half of it and I'll make thin slices of the rest. So just slice the ginger first and start cutting it really thin. This is done. Now the remaining shall be shredded. And then I'll add it to the pan. So this part goes in the dustbin. Shake it up, pull it, and pick up the ginger which is shredded and pass it to the onions. The onion is basically on pilot. Why? Because the really low heat will keep it nice and warm but won't cook it. Then you need the garlic. I'll start shredding it over here. And this is done. Pick it up, throw it in the bin, shake it up and put it in the pan or the wok. Okay. Now I'll increase the heat and start mixing it up. Add around a quarter teaspoon of salt, not too much. And now we'll start assembling the recipe. So this ginger goes back in the bowl, in the ramekin basically, over here. And now first what we'll do is, we'll take the green chilies, I'll take a paring knife, take the stick out, throw this on the side, reduce the heat to low again, cut it from between, and add it to the pan. I want the green chilies to fry a bit. I want the aroma of the green chilies to be in the butter. Remember that. And now I'll add some garam masala on one side. I'll add some red chili powder. I'll add the black peppercorns. And then I'll mix it up. Increase the heat to medium-low. And now that I've fried the spices properly, we'll add the yogurt first. So remember, when you're adding the yogurt, reduce the heat to medium and slowly and gradually start mixing it. This way, when you add the yogurt slowly, you give it a chance to fry and it mixes properly also. Now what you need to do is pick up the cream and start adding the cream also. Mix it up and mix it till the butter mixes with the cream completely, comes together. Reduce the heat and now add the chicken. Mix it up. Add the vegetables. So as you can see, I've added all the ingredients. Now in the end, you'll just add a little bit of ginger. Mix it up. And it's ready to be served. I'll serve it in front of you and then I'll show you the final look of the recipe. So as you can see, today's recipe is ready. It was very easy and one of Pakistan's most respected, loved and cooked recipes in every household. It was Malai Handi, quick and easy. And the part was that it was made in two parts. The first part was basically you need to coat the chicken with the corn flour, fry it, take it out, let it dry, let it like cool down, and then add it into the cream sauce, which was made on the second part, in which cream was used, yogurt was used, a few spices, and all the herbs you can find in any store near you. Today's recipe was easy. Tell me what you think about Indus Cuisine and what you think about the recipes. And you might be thinking, how? All the episodes are on our official YouTube page of Indus News. You can go there, comment in the comment section and let me know what you want to learn more. I'll see you in another episode of Indus Cuisine. Take care of yourself. Signing out. Bye-bye.